What if I told you, two people from two completely different worlds, one a fiery preacher from Texas, the other a sharp-tongued Hollywood icon, might have died for the same reason? What if behind the headlines, the tributes, and the public grief, there's a hidden link no one ever dared to investigate? Joan Rivers died in 2014. Marcus Lamb in 2021. But both were outspoken. Both were powerful. And both made enemies in high places. So now we ask, did they die naturally, or were they silenced? Joan Rivers was a legend. Funny, fearless, and brutally honest. Whether it was politics, celebrity drama, or even powerful institutions, she had no filter. And that's exactly what made her dangerous. Marcus Lamb? He wasn't a comedian. He was a pastor. A televangelist. But like Joan, he was unafraid to speak his truth. Especially when it came to medical freedom, politics, and power. But here's where things get strange. Joan Rivers went in for what should have been a routine throat procedure. She never walked out. Days later she was dead. The official report blamed a lack of oxygen. A simple medical accident, they said. But the deeper you look, the more suspicious it gets. A routine checkup, in a private clinic, with no crash cart, and no anesthesia team? What? Marcus Lamb's story? Just as shocking. In 2021 he died from COVID-related complications. At least that's the official story. But this was the same man who had a massive platform pushing against mandates, lockdowns, and the vaccine narrative. And then, suddenly he's gone. Quickly buried. No real autopsy details made public. And no one asking real questions. Here's where things start to align. Both Joan and Marcus were highly controversial. Both criticized big agendas, just in different ways. Joan called out elites in the entertainment world. Marcus took on the medical system and government policies. And both died after medical complications that seemed way too convenient. But it gets even darker. Before her death, Joan made a joke about President Obama that sent shockwaves. She said he was gay and Michelle was a TR***NNY. A shocking claim even from Joan. Days later she was dead. And before his death, Marcus Lamb was rallying the Christian right to push back on what he saw as government overreach. His broadcasts on Daystar featured guests who openly questioned vaccines, exposed corruption, and encouraged people to resist. These were people not just telling jokes or preaching sermons, they were disrupting systems. And history has shown, people like that don't always get to finish their story. Joan Rivers walked into Yorkville Endoscopy Clinic in Manhattan on August 28, 2014. It was supposed to be a simple procedure, a routine check on her vocal cords. But just minutes into the procedure something went wrong. Reports say Joan stopped breathing. Her oxygen levels dropped. A full 10 minutes went by before anyone even called 911. 10 minutes? That's not normal for any medical facility, especially one dealing with anesthesia. But it gets worse. The doctor who performed the unauthorized procedure? Not even part of the official surgical team. He just showed up and allegedly took a selfie with Joan while she was unconscious. Then, according to leaked documents, he performed an unplanned biopsy. Without her consent. Without the proper equipment. And definitely without protocol. People close to Joan, friends, family, even insiders, began whispering, was this a setup? What makes the story even darker is what Joan said just weeks before her death. Standing outside a building, surrounded by paparazzi, Joan was asked whether the United States would ever see a gay president. She smiled, then dropped the bomb. We already have it with Obama. You know Michelle is a TR***NNY, right? Now look, we're not saying that's true. But what matters here is who she said it about and how public that moment became. That clip went viral. The internet went into meltdown. And then, she was gone. Many people dismissed her comments as classic Joan Rivers, loud, controversial, and meant to stir. But others wondered if she had touched a nerve she was never meant to touch. Did she cross a line that powerful people didn't want crossed? Because just weeks later, the strongest woman in comedy died, silently, under suspicious conditions. There was no full criminal investigation. No prosecution. The clinic was fined, but that was it. Joan was cremated, and the case quietly faded from the headlines. Why wasn't the unauthorized doctor ever seriously held accountable? Why didn't the clinic have life-saving equipment ready for an emergency? And why wasn't there more outrage when one of America's most beloved icons died due to pure negligence? Unless, it wasn't negligence at all. Unless someone wanted Joan silent. And if you think that's reaching, just wait until we look at Marcus Lamb's final weeks. Marcus Lamb's passing in late November 2021 sent ripples through the Christian community. Known as the founder of Daystar Television Network and a fierce opponent of vaccine mandates, Marcus wasn't just a preacher. He was a public figure, a broadcaster, and a man whose voice reached millions across the globe. But behind the headlines and the statements from Daystar was a timeline that raised more questions than answers. According to reports, Marcus contracted COVID-19 and was treating it with alternative therapies, things like ivermectin, vitamins, and oxygen therapy. His family said he was improving. Joan Lamb even went on live television saying, "He's doing better. He's getting stronger." But then, suddenly he was gone. No warning. No details. No media appearance from Marcus himself during his illness. And within 48 hours he was buried. No public memorial at first. No delay to allow for tributes from supporters. Just gone. That kind of speed isn't just unusual. It's downright eerie. This is a man who spent his life in front of the camera. Daystar is known for broadcasting everything. From Sunday services to fundraising marathons to deeply personal interviews, Marcus and Joni shared it all. But during the most critical moment of his life, the cameras went dark. There were no hospital room updates. No prayer vigils aired live. No final moments. Just silence. Compare that to other public figures who got sick. There were daily updates, emotional messages, sometimes even farewell videos. But not with Marcus. It was as if someone didn't want us to see what was really happening. Or maybe, they didn't want Marcus to say something before he left this world. Now step back and look at both stories, Joan Rivers and Marcus Lamb. Two outspoken public figures. Both died suddenly after making headlines that made powerful people uncomfortable. Joan's death came right after a controversial public comment. Marcus? Right after aggressively pushing back against a global health narrative. Both were gone before they could explain themselves. Both were buried faster than most people even knew what happened. And both had loyal, outspoken wives who quickly took control of the story. Joan Lamb didn't just bury her husband. She took the pulpit the next day. She told viewers this was spiritual warfare. She said Marcus was attacked because of his stand against fear. But not once did she question the timeline. Not once did she address how fast things moved. And to this day, no one in their inner circle has come forward to challenge the official story. Joan Rivers died after what should have been a basic outpatient throat procedure at a Manhattan clinic, one of the wealthiest, most trusted areas in the country. But reports later showed that the doctor performing the procedure wasn't even licensed to operate in that facility. A selfie was taken with her while she was under anesthesia. Monitors went silent. CPR failed. Marcus Lamb, meanwhile, was receiving alternative treatments, off the radar. Not in a hospital, not under FDA-approved care. The people around him claimed he was getting better and then snap, he was gone. No videos, no photos, no final words. Now think about it. What are the odds that two famous people, both controversial, both loud, both unfiltered, would vanish under such strange and silent conditions? This isn't just about health anymore. It's about the silence that follows. Joan was bold. She cracked jokes others were scared to even whisper. Days before her death, she said something shocking. Obama is gay, and Michelle is a transgender. The media called it tasteless. But the internet exploded. Marcus Lamb, too, was calling out what he believed was government overreach. He said on air, "We're in a spiritual war. They don't want you to know the truth." And then just like that, he's gone. Here's the question no one wants to answer. What happens when a public figure knows too much, says too much, or threatens the wrong system? That's when the curtain drops. And that's exactly what happened in both these cases. After Joan died, many comedians got quieter. After Marcus died, many pastors stopped speaking out. Why? Because both deaths sent a chilling message: step too far, and you're next. And isn't it interesting that both Joan and Marcus were known for one thing: saying what no one else would dare to say? Not just to be bold, but because they believed people deserved the truth. Maybe it wasn't a coincidence. Maybe it was a warning. Maybe they knew something that someone didn't want heard. Two different people. Two different worlds. But the same strange silence after their deaths. Joan Rivers and Marcus Lamb were not afraid of controversy. They poked at the powerful. They challenged narratives. And they did it in front of millions. Joan called out Hollywood. Marcus called out the government. And both of them died, right when their voices were shaking the system the loudest. Coincidence? Or cleanup? After their deaths, questions piled up. But answers? Nothing. No real investigations. No full accountability. Just tributes, and then silence. But their legacies? They weren't buried. They were ignited. Because the truth has a strange way of surviving. even when those who speak it don't. Maybe this wasn't about just 2 deaths. Maybe this was a warning. To anyone who speaks too loud, too true, or too early. Joan Rivers is gone. Marcus Lamb is gone. But the question remains. Did they die of natural causes? Or did they die because they refused to stay quiet? That answer? Still buried.